guys, I'm Mel, and today I actually want to do a little bit of a different video. I actually got asked a question on my channel which made me really excited and run around squealing like a little fangirl. It's my first question, leave me alone, I can get excited. I actually wanted to do a video on it because I think it's a topic which a lot of people who are either looking to move to or to travel to Japan kind of consider and take into that kind of decision making process. So I thought I would share my own personal experience and things that I've observed, and hopefully that might, I don't know, give a bit of help to somebody. But the question I got asked was, how hard is it for an English speaker to live in Japan? I kind of took this to say if your Japanese language ability isn't so great, how hard is it to actually live daily life in Japan? So here goes. I guess these are just kind of my thoughts and my own experiences. Just remember, opinions, everybody has them. If yours differs to mine, that's fine. I actually would love to hear about it in the comments. First of all, a little bit about my own experience. I actually came to Japan without really knowing any Japanese whatsoever. I guess when I found out that I was coming here, I definitely studied up and learnt my hiragana and katakana, and I actually learnt quite a few like basic phrases, just so I could kind of get around and be a little bit independent. But for the most part, I didn't really know anything. And I guess I had a lot of people kind of asking me whether I was at all like worried or concerned about moving to a foreign country when I don't speak the language. But I think coming over here, I found that I didn't really have as many problems as I expected to. I mean, sure, there's always going to be really challenging kind of situations where, you know, you do find yourself thinking, okay, this would be so much easier if I did know more Japanese. But I mean, I think at least in my own experiences so far, I've found most situations I've been able to work through. And if not, I've been very fortunate to have people who've been able to help me. But I want to say this with a few little caveats. Number one, I definitely think that if you're moving to another country or even if you're visiting, try and learn some of the language. I've been studying, not as much as I should have for the last couple of months, but I have definitely been studying while in Japan, and my Japanese ability has improved. It's still not great, but it's definitely improved. So, you know, definitely try and learn a language. And you know, I've actually known people over here who've managed to forget the Japanese that they've learned before coming here while being here, which I think should say a lot about you know, how easy it is to actually live without knowing Japanese. I definitely think that in Japan there's a definite foreigner bubble, and I know a lot of different websites now will talk about this, and I think it's really true. Like, you know, if you are definitely around foreign people a lot, if you have foreign friends, if you are in a school where you mainly just talk to your, you know, English coordinator who speaks English, then you won't really ever, you know, really pick up much Japanese. I think you can probably avoid it. I don't think that's a good thing. I think you should definitely be challenging yourself. That's part of what moving overseas is all about. And there's a couple of points on this that I want to kind of talk on, just some little pointers, I guess, from my own experience that I want to share. Okay, so number one is that I think more people in Japan will speak English than you expect them to. You've got to remember that, you know, while people have various opinions on the education system in Japan when it comes to teaching English, a lot of people have been learning English from a very young age and will have some kind of ability. So, you know, a lot of the times if you're like stuck in a train station and you're lost, or if you're looking for something, there'll usually be somebody who will come up and try to give you some help in English. That's my own experiences at least, but there'll be usually somebody around who will try and help. So point number two is that there is a lot of English just around in the environment. It's everywhere, especially when you're in larger cities. You'll find that a lot of the train stations will have English signage, a lot of shops will have signage. I mean, the country is quite built for tourism, and a lot of that, you know, English is such a global language now, so you'll see a lot of English signage around. You know, it's a bit of a hit and miss kind of thing. It just depends on where you are and what you're doing. I think this will probably actually increase as well, especially with the Olympics coming up in 2020. So I think it'll be very interesting to see what happens. So yeah. Okay, so point number 3 is, so as I said before, I think that if you're living in a foreign country or traveling to a foreign country, you should be trying to at least learn a little bit of the language. And I guess on that topic, I personally think don't let not knowing that much of a language kind of intimidate you or make you hesitant to try to do things on your own. Be dependent, don't be wholly reliant on other people. But you know, try things yourself. I think it's you're missing out on such an amazing opportunity to learn things. If you're just going to run to somebody to get help every time you need to like go down to the supermarket. Do some things on your own, branch out, challenge yourself, because personally it's those times that I found that I've learned so much and tested myself and pushed myself a little bit harder. So I think it's a really, really good thing to try. Okay, so on to point number 4. Okay, your smartphone is your best friend, and I am not joking about this. I would be lost without this. Your apps and your choice of apps will make your life so much easier. Personally, I found Google Translate to be a godsend, but this is a very big but that needs to be put in here with like big capital sparkly red letters. Do not try to exactly translate whole sentences because it will not work. That is not how language dictionaries and that work. Sometimes it's enough to kind of get through, and I've used it on Japanese websites because me and my kanji, we're not good, we're not besties. But for single words, especially when you've got the kind of context, so you can narrow it down to the exact word that you want, but the fact that you can actually photograph and scan written kanji is really, really great, and it can be really, really helpful in certain circumstances. Also find Google Maps is great. It will help you with the train timetables and your public transport. Hyperdia is also fantastic with public transport. And these things just help you get around a little bit easier. You can also use it to kind of pull up if you're looking for a particular item. If you've got a phone, you can search for it, find a picture of it and show them. So if you don't have that vocab yet, you can kind of work out ways around things to be able to communicate. Okay, so that kind of brings me to my 5th point, I guess. And that is that communication is so much more than words. And I think when you're overseas in a country where you don't speak the language so much, that you really start to understand this. Words are only one really small part of the equation. I've gotten very used to looking at people's expressions, their gestures, what they're gesturing at, context, the tone of their voice, all these little things which help give me clues. So with the Japanese that I do know, I can kind of start piecing together kind of what's going on, and usually it kind of works for me as far as my experience has gone. I'm finding that as I'm learning more Japanese, kind of the gaps are getting smaller, the things that I'm understanding are getting bigger, so I can kind of piece it together a lot easier. I used to teach with no Japanese at some of my schools in some of my lessons, and when I was teaching in elementary school. And I think a lot of people, I can remember thinking before going into this how impossible that must be. But it's amazing that once you kind of figure out how to do it, how easy it is to communicate with students and communicate what you're trying to get across through the use of gesture. I used to charades it up like you wouldn't believe. I'm going to be like the queen of charades by the end of this. Pictionary, the amount of times I've tried to draw something to describe something. The whiteboard was my best friend, seriously, in teaching. I used to use it all the time. And I think it's more of a case of showing rather than telling. And I guess on the topic of your schools as well, I think you'll be surprised as to how much, of course it's very like situation specific Japanese, but how much you'll actually learn through teaching. I found that whatever I was teaching my students, I'd end up learning in reverse all of the Japanese terms for, because a lot of the time that would be the first thing that they would shout out at me. So I was kind of learning along with them, which was quite cool. And by the end of my year, I was understanding quite a lot of the classroom Japanese, which was getting used very frequently. So don't be afraid to teach. Don't think that you need to know a heap of Japanese and need to be fluent to be able to teach, especially even younger grades. they get it, and I think they're really open to trying a lot of the time, especially the younger that they get. So I guess it was a bit rambly, I'm sorry, but I think that's kind of, you know, my thoughts on the topic. I think it's completely doable, but I don't think that anything there should replace the fact that you should really start to try and use the opportunity to try and learn a language. But, you know, you can definitely work around it, especially in the meantime while you're still building those skills. It's totally possible. You just need to, you know, put a few more senses into gear and to not be afraid to make mistakes and make a little bit of a fool of yourself. I mean, I've stood in grocery lines trying to like gesture to the, you know, produce guy what I'm trying to look for, and finally to have him understand what I'm talking about. But I mean, of course, I've got, you know, 15 old orbitans kind of laughing at me in the process. But I mean, at the end of the day, whatever. People are gonna look at me anyway. That's kind of part of being in a smaller area in Japan. It's gonna happen anyway, so yeah, whatever. As long as I can communicate. So yeah, I guess that's just my experiences. As I said, if you've got different experiences, let me know in the comments. I'm really curious to see what you guys have to say. Anyway, I hope you guys like this. Remember, if you like it, then hit the like button, and you know, if you like my video and you want to see more like this, then definitely hit the subscribe button. And I will see you guys next time. Hope you have a great week. Bye.